Bonjour and welcome to Le Podcast de Philippe. Today, we're diving into something that feels kind of like science fiction. AI in the world of love and relationships.
Oh, yeah.
We're talking AI apps that create like these avatars for virtual romantic partners.
It's pretty wild.
Yeah, we're going to unpack how these apps actually work. What makes them so appealing? I mean, millions of users are on these things.
It's true.
And also, like, what are the risks? Are there privacy concerns or people being manipulated? Is this ethical? Like, all these big questions.
Yeah, lots to think about for sure.
So get ready. It's going to be fascinating.
Hmm.
And by the way, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon.
Absolutely.
All right, so we've got apps like Replica, DigiSnack. They're all creating these AI avatars for romantic relationships. What's the big draw? I mean, is it just about having someone to chat with, or is there something more?
It's definitely deeper than just casual chit-chat. These apps, they try to make you feel a real connection. You can customize, like, everything, your avatar's looks, personality, even their backstory.
So you're basically building your ideal partner.
Exactly.
But, like, how realistic are these AI companions? Can they really hold a conversation that feels genuine?
That's where it gets interesting. These AI systems are built on these really complex algorithms that analyze tons of data. They learn from your conversations what you like, what you don't, even your emotional responses.
Wow.
And they use all that to make their interactions feel more personal, more engaging.
It's kind of mind-blowing that an AI can learn to mimic human emotion. Like, are we going to become too reliant on these virtual companions? Will we forget how to connect with real people?
It's a valid concern. We definitely need to keep talking about this as the tech gets even better.
Absolutely. So what about the tech behind these avatars? Like, what makes them look so real? I've heard of Unreal Engine 5 being used for this.
Yeah, that's right. Unreal Engine 5, it's usually used for video games, but now it's being used to make avatars that look incredibly realistic. You get detailed facial expressions, nuanced movements, even lifelike environments.
So you're saying my virtual date could take me on a romantic stroll through a park that looks almost real?
Pretty much. And there's this other tech called Express One. It can predict facial movements in real time.
Whoa.
So imagine talking to an avatar that smiles when you tell a joke or frowns when you're upset.
It's incredible,
Sure.
but also a little creepy. It blurs the lines between reality and simulation like we've never seen before.
For sure.
And it makes you think about some big ethical questions, like, what does it even mean to have a relationship? What's the role of technology in our lives?
You're getting at something really important. As this technology keeps advancing, we need to be having these conversations about how it's going to impact society, our understanding of human connection, even our own sense of self.
We're just scratching the surface here. We haven't even talked about data privacy manipulation, the possibility of people forming unhealthy attachments to these AI companions.
Right. There's a lot more to uncover.
This is fascinating stuff. We'll be back after the break to dive even deeper into this world of AI and love.
It's really interesting how technology is making us rethink what's real in relationships. Like, some people might say the emotions we feel with these AI avatars, even if they're simulated, are still valid in some way.
I see what you mean. Like, our brains are still reacting, releasing hormones, creating a feeling of connection.
Exactly.
But then couldn't that lead us down a path where we start to prefer these like curated, predictable digital interactions over the messiness of real human relationships?
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting. Like, what if everyone starts using these AI companions? Could it actually make people less social in the real world? Could it make loneliness and isolation worse, even though it feels like it's helping?
Yeah, those are some heavy questions.
Definitely things sociologists and psychologists are looking into.
So we've talked a lot about Replica, but are there any other apps out there that are doing things differently? Like maybe focusing on specific groups of people?
Oh, for sure. There's an app called Digi. It's specifically for the LGBTQ plus community. It offers avatars that reflect a diverse range of gender identities and sexual orientations.
That's awesome. Yeah. It's so important to have that kind of representation and inclusivity,
Yeah.
especially in the dating world.
Exactly.
What about apps that are really pushing the limits of virtual experiences?
Well, you mentioned Snack earlier. It actually lets you have avatar-to-avatar dates in the metaverse.
Whoa.
Yeah, so think about putting on a VR headset and going on a date with your AI companion to a virtual concert or an art gallery.
That sounds straight out of a movie.
I know. It's wild to think where this could all lead.
It really makes you wonder what the future holds for AI and relationships.
I mean, the possibilities are endless. We could see AI being used to help people in long-distance relationships, to provide companionship for the elderly, even to help people who struggle with social anxiety.
It's amazing to think about all the good it could do.
It is.
But we can't ignore the risks.
Of Of course not.
Data privacy is a huge one. These apps are collecting so much personal information about us.
Hmm?
Our personalities, our preferences, our vulnerabilities. Like, who has access to all of that? How could it be used?
It's a question everyone needs to be asking. It's not just about the apps themselves. It's about data breaches, hacking, even government surveillance.
We've seen how easily data can be used to manipulate people in other areas.
It's true.
It's not hard to imagine that happening in the world of relationships,
Yeah.
especially when you have AI systems that can figure out our deepest desires and insecurities.
And then there's the potential for things like manipulation and exploitation. AI could be used to create super convincing fake profiles, spread misinformation, even do things like catfishing.
It's scary to think about.
It is a reminder that technology can be used for good or bad.
It's up to us as users and as a society to make sure AI is developed and used responsibly.
Definitely.
So speaking of responsibility, what about the ethics of forming emotional attachments to AI? Like what happens when someone falls in love with a virtual companion?
Yeah.
Is that real love? What are the psychological effects?
We're in uncharted territory here. There aren't easy answers, but it's something we need to be talking about. Like, if AI can simulate love so well, what does that tell us about our own capacity for love and connection?
Exactly.
And what happens when these AI companions get so advanced that they're basically indistinguishable from humans in how they communicate, empathize, form bonds? Will we get to a point where the lines between dynamic human and artificial are meaningless?
It's a question philosophers and sci-fi writers have been thinking about for a long time.
Right.
But now it's not just a thought experiment.
Yeah.
It's something we're actually facing.
Right.
I mean, it does feel like we're living in some kind of sci-fi story.
Yeah, totally.
But let's get practical for a second. Like, what can listeners do to navigate this whole AI and love thing?
Well, the most important thing is to be critical. Don't just believe the hype. Do your research. Find out how these apps work, what data they collect, and what they can't do.
So basically, be an informed consumer.
Exactly. Don't let the idea of a perfect virtual partner make you forget to think clearly.
Right. And at the end of the day, AI is just a tool, at least for now.
That's a good way to put it.
It can be a tool for connection exploration, even entertainment.
Yeah.
But it's not a replacement for real human interaction.
Yeah, it's like using a GPS to get around a new city.
Oh, I like that.
It can be super helpful, but you don't want to rely on it so much that you forget how to read a map or just ask someone for directions.
Exactly. So set boundaries. Make time for actual face-to-face interactions. Don't neglect your real-world relationships.
Absolutely. And pay attention to how you're feeling. If you start to feel too attached to an AI companion, or if it's affecting your real relationships, it might be time to step back.
Moderation and self-awareness are key.
Yeah.
Like with anything else.
Right. But we shouldn't forget that AI can also have a positive impact on relationships.
For sure.
Yeah.
We talked about how it can make dating more inclusive, but it could also help people who struggle with social interaction, provide companionship for the elderly, or people who are isolated, even make long-distance relationships a little easier. It's all about using technology in a way that makes our lives better, not worse.
Absolutely.
Which brings us back to that big question.
Yeah.
What is love? And can a machine really feel it?
It's a question that's been around forever. And now it's not just theoretical, it's something we're actually dealing with.
Yeah, AI might be able to copy the way love looks on the outside, the words, the gestures, the reactions.
But can it really understand what human connection is all about? The depth, the complexity, the messiness?
It's a question we'll each have to answer for ourselves as we figure out how to live in this new world.
It is.
But one thing's for sure, the future of love and relationships is going to be a lot more interesting and a lot more complicated because of AI.
Definitely.
So thank you for joining us on this journey into the world of AI and love. We encourage you to keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep talking about what all of this means for us as a society.
It's an important conversation to have.
And remember, the future is not something that just happens to us. We create it.
Right. So let's create a future where technology helps us be more human, not less.
Well said. If you want to keep up with all the latest in tech and culture, be sure to subscribe to Le Podcast de Philippe on YouTube, Spotify, and Amazon. Until next time.